Hey folks, Lance Barzy here with another Mindustry Hex Wars matchup. And we're coming in a couple seconds late. I forgot to hit record right away on this match, but shouldn't be an issue. We just have our early silicon builds, and I just built the dagger meta graphite little thingy-mabob. Maybe I should make a scheme for that. I almost built it by hand. But that's going. We got our daggers out in the first 30 seconds of the match, I would say. And I remember to put sand in the core for the metaglass. It's good. Remember to put coal in for the graphite, but I have forgotten the power. And it's only a very temporary issue. Thankfully, that coal is right there. The water is right there. It's a pretty darn good spawn here with coal water. I even watered my very first coal up there on the left, which you didn't see me place down. Quite nice. But yeah, this match, it's pretty much a 1v1 versus YSMQTHLQYH. I don't know, we'll see their name later on. People just call them YS. I'm going to try and say, YSMQTHLQYH, but something like that. Maybe I'll change that pronunciation when I see it again. But yeah, they're a Plast-ranked player, pretty solid. I've had a fair amount of matches against them. They just happen to be on lately when I've been playing. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I have not plugged in my monos. That's a little bit late, although I'm toying with... I watched... You should go back and watch this too. I watched Lara Feticus's video from a couple of months ago on monos versus drills and the speed. I don't know why there was a power node blocking the daggers there, but for some reason there was a power node blocking them. Anyway, back to monos versus drills. Drills... I don't remember the exact stats, but it was something like 5 minutes before just one copper belt, basic belt of copper and lead catches up. It's 5 minutes before the monos catch up with just one basic line, which is a long time in a match. It may have even been like 6 minutes versus a single mono factory, and we had 3 cranking here, but still, that tells me that one line of copper and lead is actually much more valuable than I think it is in terms of how much it's producing relative to a couple of monos. So that spurred me to drop in just a couple of drills, maybe 1-2 lines of copper and lead here and there as I'm going about my business in the first 5 minutes. And I think that definitely worked out in this game. And I would say generally it's going to be an approach that I'm going to try and take. I don't know about this early second metaglass. It is going to make it a little bit longer before I need to build a big metaglass, and I usually like to go straight for the air blast metaglass. I've been also toying with making just a 2 metaglass early, like laser on lead style, and that works too. I would be doing that here in my second hex. And you can see I get a little bit mixed up on the order. I went thorium for a moment, and then I was like, oh, gotcha, I need the diff power. I haven't built any other power since the steam gen, so diff power is essential here. Again, great spawn with water, but you can see power has just run out, and thankfully I have just finished my next power, so great timing. Gonna make full advantage of this water. I had missed that little water in the scrap when I was first placing the diff gen, but I saw it here. So very nice. I'm going to make some graphite. I noticed, I was like, what, graphite or silicon for this guy? And while I would usually do silicon first, I saw that I had more silicon than I did graphite, probably because I delayed the monos just a few minutes. And so I went for the big graphite. And that's really going to help. I'm always running into graphite issues in 2 or 3 minutes. So having that right away is just going to help. So I don't have to worry about graphite for another minute or 2 longer. And again, taking full advantage of the water. Water is amazing in this game. Every time I get a ton of water, good things happen. I'm just able, you're able to progress quicker. You don't have to put down as much power. It's just nice and smooth. I want that oil for plast, but unfortunately there's not really any titanium in this hex, so it was nice that I was able to get those water pneumatic titanium drills on early. You might have caught that in the... Sorry, I got something stuck in my throat, but in the first hex, I did something that I've seen RZ do mostly. That's really where that comes from, and other players a little bit too, but that is water the 3 titanium drills. Just gives you a nice steady titanium income early on, and I did that quite fast, so we're still sitting at 500 even though we have yet to put down the air blast on titanium. And like I mentioned, I built the graphite first, just because I saw I was a little bit low on graphite, but now I've gone triple silicon. I guess they're also making a bit of graphite. I call it 4+1, 4 sillies plus 1 little graphite. And people do that because the air blast of copper is slightly less than you would need for a full 6 silly. At least that's how it's been described to me. I haven't completely verified those calculations, but yeah, and it's enough for the 4+1, and you got a little bit of coal left over. Now that we're doing coal in the core all the time, then, you know, it kind of makes sense for that too. You want that just a little trickle. I try not to use too much coal in the core. Well, I'm going back and forth on this. Sometimes I'm using a ton of coal in the core, sometimes I'm not. Still haven't decided the best approach for that. But for this game, I'm going mostly not coal in the core and not sand, not tons of sand. You just need that little bit of sand for the diff gens, which I don't have right now. Diff gen power is going to die soon because of the lack of sand going into the core, and hopefully I notice soon. I'm getting that titanium set up. It's a little sloppy here, not getting everything plugged in at the right times, but I think power is going to be the problem, and it will be. And I should really make a diff scheme that doesn't have the drills built in. I also forgot one pump. You might notice there's only 3 pumps feeding into this diff gen. It would actually need 4 for perfection, but it's pretty close. It's going to work at 75% capacity, which is still pretty solid amounts of power. And the bigger problem was sand. Slapped on all that sand. You see I've got no copper and lead problems now. Maybe I've slowed down my pace slightly in this moment, but I'm able to slap down that sand really quickly. And I do attribute that a little bit to the full regular belts of copper and lead, and I think maybe 2 regular belts of copper that I tossed into the core just in the midst of doing other things and before I had time to move on to the next hex. But yeah, here we go. I threw down yet another 4+1. I'm already worried about flares. I've just been, traumatized by flares too many times, so we're going to throw down those scatter. I also noticed I had extra copper and lead, somewhat rare for this moment, and I put in a fuse. This is a little excessive. I'm not being threatened at all, but fuse will keep us quite safe against a core snipe. I'm burning up there. I think a scrap's got me. I thought that was somebody else's core for a second in this exact moment. I also have a problem with my monos. I need a scheme where they are already set to assist player. I just manually change it every time right now, so got to make that change. It's really annoying to have to do it in-game because the monos produce really slow, and then the polys produce really fast. I think it's like 30 seconds, 10 seconds, something like that. So you have to catch the mono builder in the 10 seconds that it's being built in order to change the default behavior for the mono, for the polys to be assist player instead of they come out as a rebuild, which is not too bad. I mean, they're going to help the player when they're set to rebuild, but they won't follow you around, and they might get to be distracted doing actual rebuild stuff. All right, micro the daggers, try and take as much space around me as possible. Looks like scrap guy top of me killed the daggers that were taking that hex up there. And now I got a little awkward positioning on this big, giant diff gen thing that I like. I'm not 100% sold on this is the right approach, and I don't know if I really like the scatter line all the way around, but it's certainly defensive, and I notice we're definitely going to run out of metaglass with this. Diff gens take a lot of metaglass. I'm running on 2 metaglass makers right now, which is barely any. It's a trickle. But at least it's better than 1. And actually, we were able to finish the whole thing, which is quite nice. But because the scatters are set to take metaglass, I should have switched them off metaglass for a moment here. But I spent the time making daggers. But anyway, I wasn't able to finish the water extractors for the metaglass. that I was building, and now I'm in a slight crunch, brief, stale, like stagnation. I should have been moving faster. I've got so much silicon, 4K silicon, amazing. The income is slightly deceptive because they're all little guys, so long term, it's probably not a ton of silicon income, but it is great for this starting moment, and I could almost already slap down some big stuff, but we're going to go for the normal progression, 10 minutes, surge phase. That's good enough-ish, getting close to quick timings. On potential dome, obviously I could rush the dome if I was really planning a dome economy. Hardcore, I could rush it even faster. I'm not sure what my priorities are here. It's just basic economic development, I guess. And I'm pretty happy with how it's working out in this moment. I've got 4 pretty well-populated hexes, a lot of stuff going on in them. I'm also going to take another moment for paranoia and defend everything. Losing these to a snipe would end my, happiness. So, we'll keep going, defend every single core. I've noticed a couple of other players actually not defending every single core, and that can be a significant weakness in times, especially anytime after 10 minutes, really. Have to slap that defense on every core, even go back to your old ones, defend them. Scrap player coming in here with some daggers. Maybe I should check what their actual name was, but not too scary. Lancers, I'm not expecting micro. There isn't any micro, so the daggers go down fast, but it still befuddled me for a moment. I'm like, what do I do next? What on earth am I going to do next? I see the 5K silicon, 5K titanium, and I'm doing the thing that I said that I should do last game, which is build the gigantic thing. But then I realized, okay, do I actually have power for this? And that's probably a no. We've got, 15K power? And let's make sure the surge ticks up, the phase ticks up. I'm going to use that phase and surge in this build. And, well, we've got domes, so let's just dome everything real quick. That's going to make it a whole lot faster. Check that it's hitting almost everything. It's not quite hitting that titanium. Unlucky. Can't get a perfect dome unless, you're building for it. Plastanium's going to be a bit of a problem. Not going to be able to catch my old plastanium build under a dome either. It's kind of spaced out. And I'm not going to bother to build domes or even overdrive projectors in the midst of the no man's land between hexes. So yeah, I can afford this big old thing. We'll see if it kills power. It's going to kill power. Even though I've got like 15K, it requires even more than that. Very hungry beast. This, I call it the Onyx finger, but it's not made by Onyx. It's made by Virogens, I think. The Virogens will tell me if it's not in the comments, or whoever did make it will be proud of it. It's a very nice scheme, very good production. I do have one issue with it, which will come into play later. I'll talk about it. But yeah, superb triple Zenith maker right here. And you don't see the triple configuration used often enough. The build speed of the flare, first one, tier 1, is, I believe, 15 seconds. And then the additive, everything in the additive gets built in 10 seconds. And everything in the multiplicative, the third, tier 3, builds in 30 seconds. So the optimal build speed for Zeniths is actually the triple configuration that they've wisely put together there. People usually use the double because who can afford a triple? It costs a lot to place down and to keep funded. That's pretty rapid Zenith production, especially once it's domed. But that thing, that amazing scheme, can supply all the resources for it. It's almost self-funded. It needs titanium. It needs lead. But those are the things that the megas should be mining. I haven't placed down megas yet, but don't worry. This time, I won't forget. Oh, wait, no, I did place megas. What am I saying? I placed megas in that same hex. But as I was thinking a moment ago, power is dead. It's a power-hungry beast. Now, this scheme, this beautiful, enormous differential scheme is from Dynamite. He just made it this week or a couple of days ago. So brand new to the Eviction scene. I've seen other large diff gens. A lot of them have more built-in stuff. Perhaps is wise, perhaps not. Especially, I don't love the built-in coal because look at this enormous coal patch here. I did run myself out of graphite and silicon, but that huge income I was talking about a second ago has vanished from placing the huge scheme, and since I'm not even running it, it's a bit wasteful. The timing could have been better. Probably I need to go enormous power first, then giant onyx scheme, and during that time I would be continuing to pile up income, probably because the onyx thing, the virgins thing is what ran me out of power. Since we are a little stagnated on the build speed, slapping down graphite, it is coming along, but here we go. Let's take some time to micro the daggers, take out the scrap above me, or at least lock them in a box. I'm not going to bother fighting them too much, don't want to completely mess up them, but we'll at least send some daggers in there to give them something to think about, keep them busy for a while. Because we invested so much in this hex, let's put a proper defense on it. That's still not really actually a proper defense for the long term, but it's definitely going to hold against a couple of zenith and will hold against infinite flares nearly. Especially with 4K meta in the bank, that's enough meta to hold us together. I don't really need the defense. I do see a cloud of flares up there, so that's a bit worrying from opponent, but they could be harassing me to no end in my main core. I'm lucky that they are not attacking me. But yeah, here's a look at Squilith, what they are up to. You can see they've got like 4 hexes. I've already got maybe 6 or so that I've been building big, thick chunks in, so I'm a little bit ahead. We saw that a little bit earlier. I was definitely on 2 before they were, by the time they were building the second hex, I was on my 3rd hex, and my second hex was pretty full. So I think I've got a slight edge in build order, setup, kind of. Let's micro the zenith. A little bit wasteful to use these big, expensive zenith to do the core capture that we need, but we need to expand 2 per. They're pumping out fast now that we've got the power to sustain them. And I see Silly is low. We only have 1k Silly. That's not going to be enough to be able to afford this enormous scheme, but once it's finally done, silicon problems are basically done as well. So that's my gamble on placing the big guy here. I do think that Eviction has kind of devolved into placing these enormous schemes, but it was always like that, it's always like who has the best schemes, they're going to win the game. Whoever's placing this big stuff, and we were placing giant things back in the day too. The schemes have just gotten better, more compact, more efficient as they've been studied further. Sort of the natural timeline of games, but also there's been a pretty solid amounts of players working on this. I don't do the megas right here. And then I double click my zeniths. All of them were perfectly positioned to be able to take those 4 hexes. I got to spend all this time building them back, and I wasted whatever I had down in the bottom right corner. Alas, it's only a couple zeniths though. And I'm doing this all while deadlocked on Silly. I also turn off the mega there. That's good. I mean, I'm saving the silicon in order to finish this thing, and it's nearly done. But I forget to turn them back on for a while, and that's a slight problem. Because that's supposed to be my titanium income from now on. That's the idea, I guess. They're going to get all your titanium. But yeah, let's send the zenith back out to do the scrap duty. Finally, the big silicon is ready. I guess it wasn't a total waste of time because I'm working on those unit micro. I'm thinking I need another gigantic diff gen. Loving the diff gen enormous scheme. I was using the big Thor earlier in my last video. I'm now trying out the big diff gen. The beauty of the diff gen, it's taking sand, lead, titanium, copper, or sorry, not copper, coal, I'm going to feed it with I'm going to produce enough coal right here for easily both giant diff gens. It doesn't take that much coal, and nothing else is really pulling coal from the core. The sand is pretty easy to get, a couple air blasts. It doesn't require a massive sand income, and then the lead titanium are both being fed by the megas. And the lead can come from all my monos as well. Phase is always an issue for me in these games. I'm always hovering there at the near negative phase or net zero phase income. I don't build enough of it. I misplace it sometimes. But with that enormous, very efficient triple T3 configuration, I am really pumping out zeniths already. Here at 20 minutes into the game, it makes them very quickly. We'll add flares. Flares are just a nice little component to any dynamic mid-game. They're great in the early game too, of course, for snipes, but snipes aren't going to really be possible at this stage. They're great for capturing cores, though. They're so cheap. And with that enormous silicon maker from Sire, I don't know if Sire's the original author of that scheme, but good, that's where I got it from. I think they were. So now we can afford tons and tons of flares. That thing by itself could run a whole square of flares, I think. And let's just get everything sorted. I'm going for immediately another enormous T3. And this is where this is the problem of, I don't know, the meta devolving a little bit into just who can slap down as many of those squares as possible, as fast as possible. And if you can do it faster than your opponent, you win. And here's the issue with the scheme that sometimes I have. The lead, there's that bridge in particular gets polluted with lead. Sometimes I have to fix it. That one was doing fine. A little slow to place my defense there. But let's bring all the guys in. This is a mistake from Squilth not to have already defended these hexes. It's been 20 minutes. Easily could have put defense in here. And you do not want your opponent to be right on top of you like I now am, right next to your economic production. Is not a fun place to be attacked. I bring the Zenith in here. We can slap all that stuff. I realize that it's a tiny bit of a BBB here, but I didn't even notice it because the Zenith missiles look just like the Swarmer missiles. Swarmer, I'll notice it in a minute and turn those off. But I think it's fair. I mean, the units are also putting in work here on these air blasts. This is a little bit egregious where they're just shooting the air blast, but I think it's kind of fair. I mean, you gotta take those hexes, like I said. You can't leave this spot open. I dive in for a kind of dumb attack with my Zenith. I thought maybe that core wasn't being fully shielded, wasn't being covered. Here's where I notice the swarmers hitting those. Apologies for the BVB. I even cut out 2 more in case they're too close. But anyway, yeah, that's that. I've got the resources to continue another giant production square or more power, and those might have been better at this stage. I'm a little bit dawdling, but I've made the fortress. That's important too. And I noticed titanium starting to shrink. Hopefully I'm going to fix the megas. Yes, finally going to fix the megas so they're back on. Just 5 of them is not really a solid titanium income. And that's the titanium I need for my T3 production. I have Big Silly. I have pretty decent graphite. I built those 6 multi-presses a little earlier when I was working on the gigantic differential generator. I also never got my polys set to assist, so that's why I've only got like 4 polys chasing me around. But it's not a huge problem. 4 polys is still some decent build speed. And the other polys, you can see them there. They're coming eventually, but as soon as I start building something, they're on repair. I dive in again for this because I still think that this core is slightly uncovered, but it's underestimating how much damage that fuse in particular. I try to distract the fuser there, but it turns around and wipes out my Atrax attack. I thought that Atrax attack might be enough to finish off the core there, but that attack fails. Not too great, and it looks like it was even missing all of these Zenith. That probably would have helped a lot. I'm a little bad at moving my rally points. That is important to do. But we will go for another diff gen. So like I said, at this point it just feels like I'm slapping down massive diff gen and then massive T3 production. But we do have a pretty diverse unit composition here. We've got Atrax involved, we've got Flare and Fortress, and and Zenith, obviously. Those are my 3 weapons of choice. I don't want to PvP, but I don't mind using Fortress to do it. They're practically they're not really swarmers, but they are going to punish the fact that my opponent has left lots of their eco out here exposed. And finally, I'm going around the edge where my opponent doesn't have defense. This is the problem I was talking about earlier, where that Hex has 0 defense. That could be flare sniped right there, the one that I'm going to angle in for, and I try to distract his Zenith out of the way. But look at that. I mean, it's an upgraded core, at least, so it's got the extra health. It's upgraded from the 3x3 to the 4x4. But there was practically no turrets on it. No defense. So that's a little bit of oversight that I will absolutely punish later on. But notice I have not been building anything for like solid 5 minutes. We're now sitting at 20k silicon. I could be progressing even faster here. I'm getting in some hits on my opponent, though. Definitely distracting them. RZ pops in the chat to watch this game now. It's cool. That's RZ's cat girl, featured in my first video upon my return. I guess I never mentioned a little bit of context if you're a brand new viewer. I've been playing for 4 years, Mindustry, 2,000 hours in that time. Most of which was over just 2 years, and I think I did the math, it's like an average 3 hours a day. So if you're wondering why coming back from such a long hiatus, and I'm pretty quick already, it's because I used to practice 3 hours a day. Kind of embarrassing. But yeah, that's where I did my speed run of the full campaign V6 style on Serpulo, which did quite well on YouTube-ish. And I played a ton of PvP. Almost all of it was PvP as well. So, but this is a whole new style a little bit, like I said, with these enormous schemes with mass drivers. We didn't really play with that at all. But we were placing down big self-generated T3 schemes. And here I'm checking for that lead pollution problem. It looks okay to me there, but that one is messed up. We'll see later. I'm placing defense here. This is a little unnecessary, especially when I'm out of phase. Oh, and I misplaced that phase earlier. You might have noticed I put the air blast on Cole about 30 seconds ago. And so, maybe not even 30 seconds, like 3-4 minutes ago I did it, but I remember. And so I did take the chance to eco a little bit more, get that third enormous T3 producer there going. And slight mistake here, I'm losing some units to the swarmers. They're in range. But I'm happy with these fortress attacks, just constantly bombarding and distracting the polys. Could have done a little bit better at taking all these hexes, but we're going to do it now. We're going to go around the edge. There's a little bit more defense now in that core that I criticized for having 0 defense. Rip through those shields though, and we've got so many units, we're going to just flood that and take it down. Here's that problem. You can see in the bottom right, there's lead getting into the bridge. It's a leftover from when the scheme is first built, I think. that there's a bridge that's carrying lead, and when it's partially built, the lead can get into that little coal junction there. So something to look out for if you end up using that scheme. That if that doesn't happen, you'll be working at 1/3 efficiency on that guy, which is travesty because it is such a nice scheme otherwise, but it's a pretty easy problem to fix. Just have to delete that bridge and rebuild it a couple of times to get all the lead out of the system. And now we've got such a nice forward position on my opponent, even though they're quick and they're good at teching up. I think YSMQTHLQYH is a pretty great end game player, late game player especially. They're a little bit slow to get started, but then once they do, they take off really fast. That's what I'm worried about, for sure. And you can see it in the quality of all of their hexes here have these beautiful squares every corner, nice, tight, compact schemes on everything. Actually, that tells me that they're probably slightly less efficiently placed. They might be on partial patches, or if they're put on perfect patches, it's kind of hard to find that many perfect patches. And that takes some time to do, so maybe that slows them down just a little too. Or they're making sure that they can afford everything, as opposed to my approach, which is slap down the cheap stuff while you can, and then tech up later, which results in this type of game where if I let them stay undisturbed, yeah, I think Mindustry is going to win. But here we go, around the edge, didn't do a good enough job of protecting their flanks here, and that's typically how you can win games like this where an opponent does have the defense that would basically stop. You see I went head on a few times into the attack and just got my guys roasted. But now that we've swept around the back corner, we're finding a lot more success. Stuff is popping all over the 3 cores. Granted, they're the less developed cores, but it's still painful. Power is going to happen. Yeah, everything exploded simultaneously. Squillith mentions there in chat. And that's what I like to do. That's sometimes the only way you can break a defense like this. Attack everywhere all at once. Dive in for any weak point you can find. Overwhelm and harass. The harass is like an early style. That's what RZ does. That's how he wins those games so quickly, and wins all the 1v1s. Very aggressive style. I didn't notice it I didn't understand it until it happened to me, where I was like, oh, I'm way ahead. I'm like teched up faster than RZ. And then boom, they came in with the T2 and just wiped me out. I suddenly ran out of something critical. You're out of graphite or power dies, and then boom, you can't build adequate defense, and everything's dead. So yeah, here that's GG. GG. Just overwhelm, mass production, build the big T3 eco stuff, mix in a couple of fortresses. Love those guys for their long range harassment, especially if you can get a close forward position on your opponent. You can send in the fortresses to do a bunch of damage and then walk them out when the Zenith come to attack them. Hide back under your defenses. So yeah, I like that. That's just a little demonstration of what I am going with currently for my build order, and I have seen pretty good success. Still haven't beaten like the top guys, but hopefully that's coming. I don't know. Every game, learn from a few mistakes, get it a little tighter, a little faster, and I'm experimenting more with some other stuff too. Maybe there's. I think that self-eco T3 is going to be a pretty integral component of all battles going forward for me, but mix it in with other types of things like T4, like fortresses, or like I've yet to try quasars. They have limited tactical usage, but they can be useful in snipes because they can fly, and they can definitely surprise. They can cut through some shields, but they don't have the range of fortresses, and they don't pack quite as much punch, in my experience, but like I said, I don't have a lot of experience with them in the somewhat modern times. But yeah, there we go. That's a win. Basically a straight 1v1 versus Imsquilith. So I'm hoping I can rank up again. I ranked up to Titanium this week, and I'm already halfway to Plast. So I'm feeling pretty good about Mindustry. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment for more.